Hi, folks. Robert Quigley here, Washington, D.C., the Money Pit Group. Today, we're going to do a Quigley's Believe It or Not. We're going to run through a laundry list of issues in the world of global warming, greening of the economy, and economic collapse. But let's start with our Quigley's Believe It or Not. Believe it or not, humanity must go back to the forest to live. What am I talking about? Well, we all know that the CO2 levels in the universe, on the planet really, are out of control. No question about it. We must reduce the CO2 and methane levels. But the big question is, and the one that seems to stump everybody, is how in the world are we going to do it? Well, we're going to build roof and wall gardens. One of the things we're going to do in the Quigley administration is we are going to fund decarbonation products at the residential level, the industrial level, all across the country. Roof and wall gardens is exactly what it sounds like. We're going to put gardens on roofs that are flat, semi-flat, capable of supporting a roof garden, and we're going to encourage their citizens to build garden walls. If you're not sure what a garden wall is, well, it's exactly the way it sounds. Google it. There are lots of pictures. But the point of this is it acts as a natural insulation. It keeps the interior of the building at a more constant temperature year-round, much like a basement underground in the eastern part of the United States stays somewhere in the 60s year-round, simply because of all the ground insulation. In addition to this, believe it or not, we have engineered trees that are capable of pulling CO2 out of the air as if the tree was on steroids. Not only that, but the tree leaves are replaceable. So we can continue to pull huge amounts of CO2 out of the air. This can be done on a citywide basis. This can be done in a residential house. You could even take a huge portion of the desert, and on one side you've got a massive array of solar panels, and on the other side we have a massive array of tree CO2 removal organisms. Trees that can remove CO2, actually. Google it for pictures. It's quite mind-boggling. The list goes on. In Iceland, they're pulling CO2 out of the air and they are pumping it under the ground. In Oman, there's a process where we can pull all of the CO2 in the air around the planet and stick it under the ground in Oman. That's almost poetic justice because so much of the oil has come from the Middle East, which has polluted the air. It would only seem fitting that we took the CO2 out of the air and buried it underneath the ground in Oman. It's a very simple chemical process, but again, these issues can be Googled if you want more details. We need massive arrays of solar panels on residential roofs, on commercial buildings, in the middle of the desert, wherever we can find a place to put them, we need to do this. We need residential scrubbers, we need industrial scrubbers to pull methane and CO2 out of the air. Folks, we're headed to an economic collapse. We're already facing water shortages. Just today, California has instituted yet again a water rationing scheme. Oh my gosh, this is going to become the norm. Food shortages are already appearing around the world, partly because of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, partly because of global warming. It's an issue that we can solve and we will solve. Did you know that humanity relies on essentially 90 foodstuffs around the world? And out of those 90 foodstuffs, 70 of them need bees to pollinate and recreate. Oh my gosh, the bee population is collapsing. Another problem that our administration will address. We need roof farms. There are great examples of this, especially from Canada. folks have turned warehouse roofs, tall building skyscraper roofs, roofs of all kind in the city into roof farms. If one were to stand on top of a hill or fly an airplane over any old city in the US, you would see a lot of unused space. And we can convert that into green space, which again contributes to temperature control. It also removes CO2 from the air. Now here's an example which will knock your socks off. This is an example of engineering obsolescence. Believe it or not, did you know there is a light bulb in a Chicago fire station that has been running for more than 110 years? It's true. It's never been turned off. It's lasted 110 years. Think about the length of time that your light bulbs are lasting in your homes or your offices. This is the problem, folks. It's a huge problem of early industrialization. This is what's called planned obsolescence. So if you talk to a light bulb manufacturer, and GE used to be America's biggest light bulb manufacturer, they would say, well, of course, if we make all light bulbs like the Chicago light bulb and that firehouse, we're going to be out of business after everyone gets one light bulb. Hooray, we say today. That's exactly what we want to do. We want to make things that last. iPhones, for example, that last 4 years and all of a sudden the battery stops dying. I often wonder if they don't have some program in there that says after a certain period of time, the thing begins to function less and less and less. That's a question mark. I'm not an expert, but something that someone should investigate. But now the light bulb example is very straightforward, very easy to understand. The only thing that happened in the light bulb situation was the filament was thicker. The light bulbs we have today has a hair-thin size filament. The only thing we have to do is increase the size of that filament, and guess what? The length, the lifespan of the light bulb goes from weeks and months into decades. This is what we need to do in reshaping the society, but we need to do it across the board for all sorts of manufactured products. Let's move on, folks. Believe it or not, water rationing is the precursor to re-immigration back to the east in the United States, to the northeast quadrant of the country specifically. It's going to happen. At some point, folks are going to give up rationing water, and they're going to need to move to wetter lands, and that's back east. So there you go, folks. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, subscribe below, add your comments, join the conversation. Let me know where I'm right, let me know where I'm wrong. Give us some great believe it or not facts. We'll check them out and add them to the channel. Until we meet again.